When you look into the abyss also looks into you. Nietzsche. This week, I will be reading from the first chapter and the second chapter of Stephen King's Misery. Hope you enjoy. Chapter 1, Annie. Umber 1. You're number 1. Fan these sounds, even in the haze. Chapter 2. But sometimes the sounds, like the pain, faded, and then there was only the haze. He remembered darkness. Solid darkness had come before the haze. Did that mean he was making progress? Let there be light, even of the hazy variety. And the light was good, and so on and so on. Had those sounds existed in the darkness? He didn't know the answers to any of these questions. Did it make sense to ask them? He didn't know the answer to that one either. The pain was somewhere below the sounds. The pain was east of the sun and south of his ears. That was all he did know. For some length of time that seemed very long, and so was, since the pain and the stormy haze were the only two things which existed. Those sounds were the only outer reality. He had no idea who he was or where he was, and cared to know neither. He wished he was dead, but through the pain-soaked haze that filled his mind like a summer storm cloud, he did not know he wished it. As time passed, he became aware that there were periods of non-pain, and that these had a cyclic quality. And for the first time since emerging from the total blackness which had prologued the haze, he had a thought which existed apart from whatever his current situation was. This thought was of a broken-off piling which had jutted from the sand at Revere Beach. His mother and father had taken him to Revere Beach often when he was a kid, and he had always insisted that they spread their blanket where he could keep an eye on that piling, which looked to him like the single jutting thing of a buried monster. He liked to sit and watch the water come up until it covered the piling. Then, hours later, after the sandwiches and potato salad had been eaten, after the last few drops of Kool-Aid had been coaxed from his father's big thermos, just before his mother said it was time to pack up and start home, the top of the rotted piling would begin to show again. Just a peek, and flash between the incoming waves at first. Then more and more. By the time their trash was stashed in the big drum with "Keep Your Beach Clean" stenciled on the side, Polly's beach toys picked up. That's my name, Polly. I'm Polly, and tonight Ma'll put Johnson's baby oil on my sunburn, he thought inside the thunderhead where he now lived. And the blanket folded again. The piling had almost wholly reappeared, its blackish, slime-smoothed sides surrounded by sudsy scuds of foam. It was the tide, his father had tried to explain, but he had always known it was the piling. The tide came and went. The piling stayed. It was just that sometimes you couldn't see it. Without the piling, there was no tide. This memory circled and circled, maddening, like a sluggish fly. He groped for whatever it might mean, but for a long time, the sounds interrupted. Fan, read everything. Umber 1. Sometimes the sound stopped. Sometimes he stopped. His first really clear memory of this now the now outside the storm haze, was of stopping, of being suddenly aware he just couldn't pull another breath. And that was all right. That was good. That was, in fact, just peachy keen. He could take a certain level of pain, but enough was enough, and he was glad to be getting out of the game. And that is chapter 1 and the beginning of chapter 2 of Stephen King's Misery. Join me here next week as I read from the beginning of Stephen King's The Shining. Thank you and have a great week.